The poverty of stimulus argument is one of the main arguments, or family of arguments, used in support of nativism about language acquisition, but it has also been used in other cognitive domains. If we have to identify the main idea behind the argument, it would be that the output or end product of the acquisition process is somehow disproportionate to the input available to the child. The output, that is, the linguistic competence acquired by the child, is too rich and subtle in comparison with the patchy evidence received. Therefore, there must be something that the child brings to the learning situation that allows it to bridge the gap between the evidence and the outcome of the process. Here, I will loosely follow the presentation of the poverty of stimulus argument by Lawrence and Margolis, who began their exposition by introducing the hypothetical notion of an empiricist learner. An empiricist learner is one that instantiates the principles and assumptions of an empiricist learning theory. It is a model of the theory, if you will. As such, this hypothetical learner lacks innate language-specific biases to guide it in the acquisition process, and instead is limited to the application of domain-general learning processes. As Lawrence and Margolis see it, the intended conclusion of the poverty of stimulus argument is that normal first language acquirers are not empiricist learners. To see the argument in its context, let us present a very schematic description of the situation faced by the child acquiring its first language. First, we have the output. So, what is the outcome of language acquisition? It is what linguists call linguistic competence. That is, an internal system that can pair boundlessly many articulations, such as English utterances or American Sign Language signs, with boundlessly many meanings, often in complex and subtle ways. At the other side, we have the input to the acquisition process, which consists of the data that the child has to go on in acquiring language. This is made up of the utterances that the child is exposed to from its caretakers or peers, for example. This collection of utterances that serves as input is called the primary linguistic data, or PLD. To complete the scheme, we have the child, who, on the basis of the primary linguistic data, and at the term of only a few years, acquires a linguistic competence, which at its core is just like that of the adult. In the classical empiricist view, it is the data, the evidence from experience, that is the bigger player in the acquisition process. In this view, children are either taught or else implicitly copy the sentences they hear in the environment. So, the linguistic experience they have ends up shaping or sculpting the ultimate form of the child's language. However, nativists reply that the evidence that confronts children is insufficient to account for the characteristics of the outcome, the mature linguistic competence. So, given the disproportion between data and end state, the child must bring something to the learning situation that enables it to fill the gaps. In this view, the child, with its innate capacities, is indeed the main player in the learning game. A more sophisticated variety of empiricists or anti-nativist might recognize the important role played by the child and its built-in biases and capacities, while at the same time replying that those biases and capacities need not be specific for language. All that we need, they would say, is domain-general learning mechanisms, actively extracting regularities from the data. However, the nativists will reply at this point that the end result of language acquisition is too complex and idiosyncratic, and too far removed from the available data to be the result of the operation of domain-general mechanisms. Hence, we need to postulate a language-specific acquisition capacity. This language-specific capacity is what Chomsky and others have called universal grammar, or UG for short.